When I set out to make these more obscure projects, inspiration strikes in different ways. It's often when I find a unique container, like this Jacob's bin, I think that's how you say that. It's a pendant lampshade that's perfect for a recirculating bowl because of this opening. Even so, modifications are required. I need to find a few components to get started. Some bulkheads, a few O-rings, and glass. I cut the glass down to a smaller size and sanded down the edges so it fits right over this hole. I'll use this to mount both bulkheads within the opening. In order to do that, I have to put holes in the glass. As always, a diamond-tipped hole saw made the task a breeze. The O-rings will create a watertight seal when installed between the glass and bulkhead. This piece must be secured to the shade's opening. Silicone not only will hold it in place, but it will also ensure water is retained within the vessel itself. After letting the silicone cure, it looked like this. As you probably gathered by now, I'll orient the shade in the opposite position it's intended to be in. I just need a base for it to rest on. This plastic bowl is perfect. It will allow me to create a reservoir of water and will facilitate the recirculating feature. Of course, a pump will play a role in this as well. I have this one rigged up to RO tubing, which makes linking it to the bulkhead really easy. I also had to cut out a section of the bowl so the shade fits flush on the top. Let's see how this works right off the rip. I could tell that it was recirculating, but I had to install tubing on the inside to get a better idea. To my surprise, it worked without needing any modifications. I want to create a tiered system that begins at the top of the RO tubing. However, that would be difficult as is with the tube sitting in the center of the container. Instead, I attached a 90-degree adapter to the end that allows the tube to go up the side of the glass. I considered various options for the tiers themselves, and these deli cups seemed like a viable option. I'll stack them up like this to create pulling areas. However, I have to attach them together one at a time to ensure placement is optimal. I marked the bottom container, applied glue to the edge, and placed the other accordingly. As I continued, I realized the super glue was taking longer to dry than expected, so I added hot glue to hold it down until it does. I also drilled a hole in the top container for a bulkhead before attaching it to the others. I siliconed over everything as well to ensure the connections are watertight. I installed the bulkhead after it cured. These containers will create the tiered spillover effect I'm going for. However, to make that happen, I have to cut out spillways into the side of each. These dishes are fairly brittle though, so I had to be really careful as I did. I cut them out without any issues, and it still fits perfectly in the container. However, this alone looks terrible, so I'll hide it with various components. I hot glued chunks of limestone all over to hide the plastic. I made sure to keep the spillway intact as I did. I should mention though that this isn't the best long-term solution. Hot glue doesn't necessarily hold up underwater. The next step will remedy this. The base here may look a little choppy, but I like it. Even so, it will look much better with a little super glue and rock dust. This blends everything together. It also adds more rigidity and strength to the structure. Think of it like mortar between bricks. I did this with rock dust on most of the structure, but I used cocoa fiber on parts of the exterior. The results look incredible if you ask me. I'll embellish it further once it's in the container, but I need more support to do that. Due to the way it's tiered, the structure can't stand on its own. As I went through my options here, I decided on using wet foam because it's easily manipulated to the desired shape. Now then, I dropped the scape into the bowl and hooked up the tubing. It held up better than I anticipated, and I only needed 2 pieces of foam to stabilize it. I used scrap metalamat to section off the overflow to ensure rocks don't block it. Handfuls of stone allowed me to build up the land around the formation and fill in the space. I don't want it just to look like a pile of rocks though, so I added gravel to break things up. I wanted additional height too, so I added more foam. To create a more optimal growing space for moss without adding substrate, I rehydrated sphagnum moss that I covered most of the rocks with. This allowed me to build up more topography within the land itself. Additionally, it acts like a barrier of sorts, allowing me to add smaller rocks near the front for texture. I filled the tiers with these too. Things are looking pretty solid thus far, but it will look even better with moss. I found an awesome selection that will really bring this setup to life. I sprayed everything down to get it ready and got to work. When I add moss to setups, I always mix up the different species to create an interesting variety of textures. The difference in shades of green plays into that as well. What really set this design off though was the tree moss. I mean, come on, how awesome do these little tufts look? I'm so excited to have patches of it all over the new property. Anyway, I'm also tired of seeing this under the studio lights. A flexible gooseneck light seemed like the perfect choice. At this point, I was finally able to add water into the system as well. I poured it into the top waterfall and let it cascade down to see how this could look. It's exciting, but before I get the pump up and running for real, I'll add more details, namely some small branches. I added them throughout in a way that I feel accentuates everything I've already done without overshadowing it. Lastly, I concealed the bulkhead in the top tier, added a few additional stones throughout, and turned on the pump. Moss and mini waterfalls. What more could you ask for? Moss is generally one of my favorite plants to work with, and this is a perfect example why. It's a relatively simple build, but moss has a way of taking things to the next level. The textures, different shades of green, and vibe of it all just makes for something nice to look at. Especially the tree moss. I absolutely love the way that it arches over the water features. I just can't get enough of it, and I'm excited to use it in future projects. I want to know what you think of everything though. Let me know in the comments, and if I could get a like for the moss alone, that would be cool. A piece like this, although small, can add a huge impact to any room. Plus, other than topping it off with water and a quick spray every now and again, it's essentially a self-sustaining system. And as I said before, I cannot get enough of the tree moss. I don't know about you, but I always love repurposing things, like a lampshade, into a completely new and unique piece of art. Living art at that.